A warm welcome to the launch event of the Gender Intelligence Report 2021. It's great to have you all here on site. We were so pleased that we got 10 more registrations even yesterday for this event on site. And there are a few hundreds out there online. So also a warm welcome to the ones that join us online. This event takes place in the context of the Diversity and Inclusion Week that already started yesterday. We have a lot of inspirational sessions, online sessions throughout the whole week, and I really invite you to join if you haven't already registered. This event would not be possible without our sponsors. So a big thank you goes to our sponsors, Credit Suisse, Bühler, Helvetia, UBS, Zürcher Kantonalbank, SIX, Die Post, Allianz, Generali, Audi, ABB, Swiss Re, Raiffeisen, Hilti, Swisscard, American Express, SBB, and Novartis. Hello, Leonie, welcome. Just one question. Do you all have this yellow band on your wrist? Perfect. If not, make sure, go to the reception. Yes, please go to the reception now and get it, show your certificate, because that's the entry for food, coffee, and everything. To get the gender intelligence out as it is now, clearing and analyzing all the data, interpreting them the right way, visualizing the results, and present them to you now today needs a lot of people, a lot of working hours, some sleepless nights, Ines, and of course, different perspectives. Therefore, I really want to thank the whole team. You see the names here: Nora Keller, Jamie Clore, Jeremy Fleury, Melissa Reynolds, Mino Bagava, and Raphael Sumamata, who contributed a lot, also the rest of the students and so on from the CCDI team. And we will see, of course, some more of us today presenting the results in a minute. I now want to hand over to Alexandra, who is the facilitator of this event today and will moderate through the morning. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Gudrun. Does this work? Hello, can I hear? Are you still practicing with the mic? It's switched on, no? Okay, try again. Good. Okay.
Only one.
Maybe I have to switch. Can you check? It was green. It was yellow, and then it switched back to.
So now it should work. Try again.
Right. Okay, I'll just start then. Not good. So I have to have this one.
Another.
Thank you very much. So, welcome also from Advance.
There seems to be.
Ines, where's yours?
Here.
Yeah.
I'm really lucky today.
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay, yes, we are all excited about the latest insights from the Gender Intelligence Report. And we're also quite proud because this report is unique. It is based on employee data of like 300,000 employees from 90 companies. And this is really a data set that's unique in terms of quality and quantity. And delivers us comparable data over time and it has objective data in there because it's raw data. So we're really proud of this, and we can only do this thanks to the partnership that we have with world-class research from HSG, University St.Gallen, and Gudrun and team, and Advance, which brings in the business side with by now 130, close to 130 member companies. So Advance is a business network from with companies that commit to driving gender equality in business. Our part is that we support them along the journey with a concrete program. Most of you hopefully know us. Those who don't, you can explore us on the website. So we offer concrete program, meaning a women empowerment with skill building and mentoring program. This is cross company. Plus we also do leadership awareness, sensitization. We have a CEO breakfast where we really try to influence from the top. And then we spark organizational development by sharing best practices and of course via our great report. So then I think it's time to welcome on stage Gudrun again, once again from HSG, presenting the report together with Alkistis Petropaki. She is the general manager of Advance. With us today is also Ines, a very crucial figure in the whole report. Ines Hartmann will be here as expert, also helping to answer questions. Then we have Faye, my colleague over there. She is the program manager of Advance, taking care of the future workplace and skill building, and also mentoring. You're active in there as well. So this is a wonderful team. I have the honor to be the facilitator and lead through the event. My name is Alexandra Rutsch, and I am the communication manager of Advance. Okay, so now, before we dive into the matter, I have to remind you of the housekeeping rules. So we'll start with the smartphone. Please have it ready, but on silent, because we're going to have a poll and you may want to scan the QR code to then participate. For the online audience, which I also warmly welcome, please look at the Q&A button via which you can submit your questions. The chat line, which Faye is also taking care of, is not for questions. If there are any issues or if you have comments, so bring them in the chat, but use the Q&A for your questions. You can submit your questions at any time. We will collect them, and Faye will make sure that we have the opportunity to answer them all, hopefully. So I think that was all of it for the housekeeping. Good. So what can you expect from this session? So there are basically two parts. First part is inside latest news, what's happening on the gender equality agenda, what's the latest insights. And of course, we also have recommendations for you. This is a very valuable part. And then we go and dive into D&I in practice. So we were lucky to get 3 companies who are willing to share what they're doing in their companies on super critical topics, namely EY on rewriting leadership norms. Then we have IKEA, who's talking about how to bring more women into P&L. And last but not least, Biogen, talking about hiring and interviewing inclusively. So 3 key topics that we will hear about from practice side. So, okay, and with this, I'm super happy to hand over to Alkistis and Gudrun for the report.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. And I hope my mic is working. Yes, right? Okay, so let's dive directly into the numbers, no?
Say something again.
Okay, can you hear me? Shall I get this one? Okay, can you hear me now? Yes, great. Okay, so let's dive into the numbers, and I would like to start by making you all work. So the people that are here and the online audience, I would like to ask you a question. So what I would like you to please ask you is to go either to slido.com and put the number that you see on the screen, or use the QR code to answer following question. What is the percentage of all university master's degrees in Switzerland going to women? So the percentage of all university master's degrees that go to women. And Ines will show us the results in a moment. 59% says the majority, and we have a couple of people saying 54, 52, and almost nobody below 50. A very well-informed audience we have today. So 59% says the majority, 52 and 54 as second questions. Shall we close the poll now? Okay, so you've been over-optimistic. Reality is that 52% of all university master degrees go to women, and 54% of all University of Applied Sciences master degrees go to women. So have you ever heard the sentence, oh, I would like to have more women, but we cannot find any, right? Okay, let me ask you a second question. Again, same procedure. What is the percentage of women in top management on average over the 90 participating companies in the report? So representation of women in top management on average in the report.
Melissa is not allowed to vote.
So
she knows.
17%, 14%, 19%, 17%, the majority of you says. Still the majority, 17%. And shall we close the poll, Ines? Perfect. And let's go to the first slide to see the answer. So the correct answer is indeed 17%, or in other words, the face of leadership is still very, very male. And it is somehow a pity because the talent pool is diverse. We have a lot of university educated women that are out there. And something that hasn't changed since we are publishing this report is the fact that the non-management pool of employees is always gender equal, 50-50. But what we see is that we are losing a lot of women in the way from university to top management. One thing that is positive on this slide and is a new development is the representation of women in lowest and lower management. And in both categories, we see that we have 40 or 31%, and both numbers are above 30%. And 30%, we all know, is kind of a magic threshold, because that moment a minority stops behaving like a minority and has the chance to really influence culture. Talking about influence, let's have a look on influence, on position, management positions with influence, the so-called power positions. So, and as we see on this slide, only 26% of women hold positions with personnel responsibility. for instance. Now, on the graph, you see the totality of positions with personnel responsibilities. So all those numbers add up to 100%, and how those are distributed in different management levels. And as expected, in the lowest management level, we have, of course, the list of those positions with personnel responsibility. And remember from previous slides, in the lowest management level, we have 40% of women represented, which means, in other words, that the 40% women do not hold the positions with power and money. And as we move up to management, we see that the difference between women and men is becoming bigger and bigger. And basically, where we have those influential positions where with decision-making power, we basically do not find a lot of women. And even more dramatic are the numbers if we look at positions with P&L responsibility, where we only find 17% of women holding positions with P&L responsibility, or in other words, 83% men. Now, probably you're all thinking, okay, I've already heard this. It's not the first time that I hear women are underrepresented. Women do not hold positions with power. And you know what? This is exactly the problem. The numbers do not move. So we looked back, and the representation of women in management in 2018 was 30%. Overall, women in management. 2021, 31%. And yes, you got the maths right. It is only 1% difference. Of course, when we go deeper into the analysis, we see that there are some positive nuances there that give reason to be a little bit more optimistic. But overall, we don't see the needle move. We don't need any change. And this is somehow a little bit depressing, because all of us and all of you, we are making all those great efforts to get to more diversity, and we're not having impact. So it is obvious that there is something that we are not getting, right? There is something that we need to change. So what is it? So what I think that we are all underestimating is the sieve, or in other words, the effect that the system has in our efforts. When I say system, I mean the current structures, the current practices, the current mindset that we have in the business world. All those things together, they work like a big sieve, and they are very, very efficient in eliminating diversity, not only gender diversity, but any kind of diversity. And what becomes evident if you think about this is actually that in order to have impact and see change, we need to change the system. Our diversity efforts up to now, they were aiming very much on trying to change the women and trying to make women fit into the system, the current system, which is wired for male, full-time employees, white male. And everything that is different than that is disappearing in the way to the top. Those that have been here yesterday already in the opening session of the D&I week, probably you've already heard some insights on this topic. So what the data tell us is that the current rules that we are playing with in business exclude women. And what we would like to do in the presentation today is to discuss and focus on 3 points, 3 measures that we believe can have systemic impact and therefore create change. And what we would also want to look into today is that if we want to have change, we need to take it seriously. And we need to manage diversity and inclusivity as if this was our biggest business problem. And we'll hear a lot more what exactly this means. And for this, I would like to hand over to Gudrun.
Thank you very much, Alkistis. I was separated by Giulio, but I think it's only practical reason. So, for beauty reasons. Thank you, Giulio. To change the rules of the game and to set the right measures, we first really need to understand why men are still overrepresented at the top. And we will show you this along 3 key challenges, and also, of course, give you concrete recommendations, what you can do in your companies, how to address these challenges. So let's see what the first main challenge is. New hires into key positions are still, in 2020, predominantly male. So what we see here is that overall, women make up 32% of all management hires. And currently they are at the rate of 31%, so more or less the same. The effort to hire qualified women seems to decrease compared to the foreign years. When we look at the lowest management level, we have a hiring rate here of 36%, but then we lose again with each hierarchy and end up at the top management with 1/5 of female hires. What does this mean for the pipeline? You remember we had a perfect basis of 50-50 in non-management positions. And overall, we have this 32% of management hires. So if we move to the next slide and have a closer look at the different management levels, what we realize here is that there seems at the moment more focus on hiring women for middle and top management positions. Of course, there is more visibility, also more attention in the media. So on the one hand, the good news is if we look at top management, middle management hires and hires with personnel responsibility, you always see that the red bar above is slightly longer than the green one below. This means that the current share of women in this position is slightly lower. So overall, this has a positive impact of the share of women in management positions. But to be clear here, we are talking about a very small amount of women in these positions. Unfortunately, this is not the case where the huge numbers are at the lower and lowest management levels. So here you see the opposite. The green or petrol bar is slightly longer than the red one. This means that less women are hired for lowest and lower management positions than we currently have in these hierarchy levels. The biggest gender hire gap is therefore in the most important management levels. So here we have the overall hires for all the management levels. And if we look at all hires, what you realize is that 3/4, 75% of all management hires go to lowest and lower management. So there, the pipeline is filled, not in the top management. And these are exactly the levels where women, in comparison to their current representation, get less hired, as we have seen on the slide before. If you look at the lower management, so the third and the fourth bar from your perspective, all hires make up 42%, if I count it right, yeah. And this is exactly the entry point for people management position and more leadership positions for the next steps. And unfortunately, what you realize here, the gap is the biggest at lower management level. We also had a look at the development. And there we had a smaller sample of 30 companies that already participated in 2019 and now in this year's report. And what we realized is, again, that there seems to be less focus on female management hires at all management levels, what you see here, especially at the top management level, but we have to be cautious here because that's a small number we are talking about. And there is more volatility at these ranks. But what is important is, and I think we realized it a little bit with the first poll here, that our perception is slightly distorted. So if we see some women in middle and top management, we have the feeling equality is no longer a problem. And that holds, of course, for men and for women. And we had this overestimation also with the university degrees in there. So the problem is still there, even if we see some of them climbing up the hierarchical ladders. Honestly, we do not know if we have a pandemic effect in this year's hires. The future report will tell us, or so in a sense of, was it just a fall back into our old patterns that what we do when we get under pressure, and pandemic all put us under pressure, therefore might be that we had this old pattern of hiring more men. We will see probably next year and the year after in the report if this is a longer trend or it's really due to the pandemic. So what can companies do to stop hiring more minimes, as we call it? And I want to give you 3 recommendations. The first one is set inclusive behavior as hiring criterion. That's very important. If it's not a criterion on hiring, there is no attention. So ask your candidates, for example, when it comes to psychological safety, how do you create an environment where everyone can feel free and speak up and share their opinion? Or how to react when a team member is making a mistake? Or also, how do you make sure that all members in your team are heard? So to really create a safe space. So this criteria must be part of the hiring process. The second one is equally important. If we manage to widen the profiles, we expand the pool of talented people out there from a diversity perspective. Is it really necessary to have a university master, for example, in engineering? Or can it be something else close to this? Is it really necessary to have like 10 years of experience in an industry? Or would it also be possible to come from a different industry, but with a high affiliation to the topic, for example? And in this context, also check your current composition of the team. What is missing? What kind of diversity do you want to bring in? Not only from the service level diversity point of view, also from the deep level diversity point of view. And the third point I really want to recommend, because I see it a lot, this token woman on the shortlist, and this has no effect. So make sure that equal hiring slates are there for both genders. So really aim for 50-50 representation on a short list, even if it's ambitious and tough. Otherwise, you don't get an idea of the also different competencies of the women, for example, and make sure that you broaden also the shortlist. We will hear more about inclusive hiring afterwards from Biogen's best practice. I look very much forward to this input. Now I want to hand over again to Alkistis to give us more insights into the challenges of promotions.
Exactly. So key challenge number 2 are the promotions. And I'm happy that I'm presenting this part because I have more positive news to give you than Gudrun in hiring. So there are some positive developments here compared to last year. The first one is that on the lowest management level, the percentage of women and men getting promoted into this level are coming closer to each other. The second positive thing is that for every management level, the female promotions are higher than the percentage of women in this level, which means, in other words, that promotions effectively contribute to increase the representation of female in management. So this is also a progress compared to last year. And I want to believe that we have contributed to this as well with a report, because last year we haven't been presenting nothing else than promotions, promotions, promotions. You have to look into those. Okay, but I don't want to say that we are close to perfection yet, right? So there are some small problems as well into the promotions. And one is that companies still do not use the full talent pool. So normally we should be comparing one level below with the promotions of the level. So let's have a look. Remember, 40% of women in lowest management, but only 35% of promotions in lower management. Meaning that actually there would have been more women to get a promotion there. And then the other thing is, of course, that the vast majority of promotions is still going to men. And this is funny because when I talk in companies, especially with male employees, I hear very, very often, you know, me as a non-diverse person, I do not have a chance for a promotion anymore. And this is simply not true. The numbers are giving us a complete different picture. And I think it is extremely important to, every time we hear this, to look into the numbers, right? And see what the reality is. Because it is still very, very true. If you want to get a promotion, it is better to be a man. What we see as well happening is that women get stuck in expert roles. So again, the same chart as we've been seeing for hiring. And although in lowest management, the percentages of men and women getting a promotion are quite similar, as soon as we get to lower management or further, we see that the gap is becoming very, very large. We looked into the development of promotions as well for the different management levels, and positive news: in 3 out of 4 management levels, we have a positive development since 2019. And this is, of course, particularly positive. And I suppose thanks to the focus we have been all putting on promotions. So what is it that we need to do in order to have more women getting promoted? First, biggest thing, we've heard a lot of times women get stuck into expert roles. So we need to give early on talented women P&L roles. We need to bring them into these business positions that would allow them to advance and become one day the CEO of their company. And we're going to hear best practice on this one. Very happy, looking forward to IKEA's best practice. Then the promotion process. Still, in many companies, the promotion process is actually non-existent. It's not managed. And what we need to do is to manage the promotion process exactly the same way as the hiring process, meaning criteria, having more than one person making the decision who is going to get promoted, and ideally with a diverse committee of promotions, and then again create a list of candidates. This is still not happening enough. Inclusive behavior, we heard from Gudrun before. It is easier having inclusive personalities in a company if you want to advance inclusivity, and being ready to follow through. So this great salesman who is not behaving inclusively, do you want to keep them, him in the team or her in the team or not? And then a targeted talent management for the upper management levels, for instance, with sponsoring. Now, we've looked at hiring and promotions. The next point we're going to see is how age plays differently for women and men. And for this, back to Gudrun.
Thank you very much, Alkistis. That's my favorite topic at the moment. The window for career opportunities is decidedly smaller for women. So if you look at the two statements here, close to 50% of all promotions go to employees between 30 and 40. Why? We have to work until 65, 70. Why can we only be promoted between 30 and 40? So my team is nearly falling into depression because they're coming close to 40 now and have the feeling no promotions anymore. So this can't be, makes absolutely no sense. The second one is 40% of management hires go to the same age group. So a very limited focus on this rush hours of life. Just to give you some facts from the Federal Statistical Office in Switzerland, in 2019, the average age of the first-time mother in Switzerland was 31. And the average first-time father was 33. So let's have a closer look at the different age groups in combination with promotion and hiring and gender. So first, we have a deeper look into promotions again. So the 30 to 50s seem to be the career boosters for men and the career killer for women. First, look at the left-hand graph from your perspective. What you see in the first two bars is between 21 and 30, women and men have similar promotion chances to the lowest and lower management levels. So on the left-hand side, we are talking about lower and lowest management levels, and then again by age and gender. If we jump to the next two bars, so the age group 31 to 40, we realize that men are almost twice as likely to be promoted into these positions. And on the right-hand side, we have to focus on middle and top management, again, by gender and age. And what you see is that 54% of all promotions go to men between 30 and 50, and only half to women, 27%. And that's, of course, is the result of the missing pipeline beforehand. Then let's jump to the hires. Again, while women's careers stagnate with 40, men's push ahead. So on the left-hand side, you have again the lowest and lower management levels by gender and age. And what you see here is while women and men between 21 and 30, so again, the first two bars have more or less similar hiring chances for lower and lowest management positions. 30% of all hires in the next level then, between 31 and 40, go to men, twice as much as for women. So you see the difference. It's widening up a lot in the 30s. So to cite my colleague, Jamie Clore, who is also here with us today, are companies afraid of the maybe baby effect? Yeah. So even before motherhood and regardless of women's actual plans for motherhood, women in their early 30s are viewed as the riskier choice. And I mean, if we look at the turnover rates, at the fluctuation rates, it's not true. Women are similar loyal as men. So there is no reason for a maybe baby bias. On the right-hand side, again, the focus on middle and top management. And what is really impressive, I have the feeling, look at the bar of the 40 to 50-old men. They make up 37% of all hires for middle and top management. But only 14% of women make it there. So again, you can always rely on these facts and numbers if you hear that men have no chances to be hired or to be promoted. It's still very comfortable out there for them. Important career steps clash, so to say, with family prime time and have a huge disadvantage for women. We have seen that the most important career steps happen between this narrow window of 30 to 40 years for women. For men, it's at least 30 to 50. And this clashes with the family prime time. And still, especially here in Switzerland and in all German-speaking areas, women are reducing their employment rate in this period and take over the majority of the care responsibilities. Sorry. But again, what you see on the right-hand side is that we still have a full-time culture in middle and top management here in Switzerland. And of course, there is a clear advantage for men to progress in their career. But if I frame it the other way around, not only women are at disadvantage, also men are confronted with challenges, especially when they do not conform to the typical full-time breadwinner career. So my hope is also a little bit on the younger men, I have to say, that they refuse to go this way. What can companies do? And I only want to give 2 recommendations here. And I really, with passion, I say, please let us stop to treat parenthood as a problem. It's part of the professional career. Most of us have care duties. A lot of us are parents. And therefore, in our thinking, we must integrate that being parents, having care duties is part of the professional career. And equally important, do not assume, because I hear this a lot when I talk to companies, that women having their first or second child, they are no longer interested in a career progression. Ask them, give them the opportunities. And also on the other hand, give the opportunities to men to take over more care responsibilities without having a negative impact on their career advancement. And the second recommendation, also very close to my heart, is redefine career paths and make them more flexible. That helps everyone. And also with regular career check-ins over the whole employment period we have. So for example, it's not only to give sabbaticals or learning opportunities, it's also to be more flexible on reducing and increasing, again, for example, the employment percentage. And what is also important in this context, please reflect on your talent definitions. What is a talent and why is it linked to age? Am I no talent because I'm 57? Why? So please widen also the talent definitions and make career paths more flexible. So what we have to do is really turn around the vicious cycle. Because what we have seen so far is that the social norms on gender roles, the unequal distribution of care work going along then with the huge part-time share that women work, leading to lower career opportunities for women. And this creates a vicious cycle for women's career advancement. What can we do to turn around this cycle? First of all, it needs courageous leaders and companies to lead the way here. But in addition, what Alkistis mentioned from the beginning is we have to fix the system because then everyone wins. So we have to stop hiring the Minimes. We have to bring women early into pole positions, give them P&L responsibility, encourage them to do these steps, and change from linear to more flexible career paths. But what is important too is that we need to give diversity, equity, and inclusion the attention that we give to any other business topic. And that is also how we should manage it. It's not a nice thing to have. It's definitely a must-have. And what does this include? This means, first of all, we need to define a vision of what kind of inclusive culture we want to have. So we have to talk about in the companies, what do we understand by inclusive culture? How much of a diversity can we handle? How much of deep level, surface level diversity is important to us, for example. And of course, link this always to the business strategy. Then what gets measured gets done. So define inclusion KPIs for all HR processes, for example, but not only HR processes. And what we see from research very clearly is hold managers accountable for reaching inclusion goals and be ready to make hard decisions, as Alkistis already mentioned. Again, as you do it with any other business goal. And of course, lead by example, especially from top management. These are the role models, and people see what is possible, what is rewarded in our company. So with this said, I want to hand over to Alkistis to close the first part.
Yes, and I would like to close the first part of the presentation with a short video. This is Advance's newest campaign, and you're the first ones to see it. We're going to launch it directly after this event today and in social media, so please share it, comment it, like it, etc. And the reason why this campaign has been developed is because when we saw the numbers of this year's report, we said it's not enough to just present numbers. We want to make it visible somehow how absurd it is to have different playing rules for different genders. So we called the campaign the Career Games. Do you see the similarity to the Hunger Games? And what we did is we let children play with the rules of today's business world. And this is the result.
Same game, different rules. Let's fix the systems.
Clear call to action, quite impressive. So I'm always very moved when I watch this. So it's now time for your questions. I would like to start with the audience here on site first and take questions if you have any on the first part, on the numbers. I know that we have questions in the chat. So if there's no eager person in the room, we would start with the chat line then, or the Q&A. Okay, Faye.
Okay,
I think we'll start with you then.
okay, is this working? Excellent. Okay, an easy one. Ines, I think maybe you could answer this from Zanab Labidi. Which positions are considered as lowest or lower management? A simple question to do with the data.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer this question. Thank you. So we use the logic of the Federal Statistical Office that they do with the salary structure analysis. So in German, it's Lohnstrukturerhebung. And that's that we can compare the data. So as we also already have seen in the presentation on lower management levels, we also have some people like in expert functions. And then starting from lower management, it will be like team leaders and like leadership positions with not that many responsibility areas. And then of course, going up, responsibility increases. But you can find the exact definition of this from Federal Statistical Office, or it's also used in Logip. So the wage analysis tool by the Federal Office for Gender Equality. So it's really like a very known definition in Switzerland.
Thank you. The next question is about COVID, actually. Have you, perhaps to Gudrun first, have you noticed any negative impact of COVID on advancing D&I during the survey?
I think I have to give a different answer here. So if we look at who reduced, for example, the employment rate, who took over homeschooling, who quit the job, on a global basis, as well as here in Switzerland, we see that more women did it. That's what I said before. Under pressure, what we all do unconsciously, we fall back to our old patterns. And our old pattern is women care for the children and men earn the money. So there is evidence here already in Switzerland. On the other hand, concerning the attention of the topic, I do not have the feeling that we lost momentum. On the contrary, we really, have more projects and clients at the moment. A lot of companies focusing on these topics, ESG, for example, overall, also coming from the non-executive boards as a topic, for example. So I don't have the feeling that the topic overall is losing momentum, but we really fight with these unconscious old patterns we have in mind.
Thank you, Gudrun. And Alkistis, I think we can see from the increase in members of Advance that it's definitely a topic that's completely front of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So we were very concerned as Advance that we're going with the pandemic, lose all our members. And this didn't happen, in the opposite. So we had a lot of new members in those last 2 years, which means that the gender topic is really a very, very important one. Very positive thing.
Thank you. And just time for one more, I think. From Andrea Delanoy, we need to circumvent gender biases of recruiters. Any advice on that?
Yeah, I think I start with this topic. Yeah, we do a lot of unconscious bias trainings with top management teams and recruiters, but always mentioning it's not enough. One unconscious bias training doesn't make it an equality paradise in your company. It's really necessary to work immediately also with the system, with the processes, with the structures, adopt them to the new mindset. What does this mean? For example, rearrange a hiring process. Is it really necessary that you get the CV with the nice or not so nice picture upright, with all the very important information about your family status, how many children you have, what religion you are in, and so on? Or can we just leave this kind of information out? It's very important that the recruiters experience themselves, how they react, for example, by playing role games to special candidates, for example.
Great.
So Antonia Wade is with us today. Happy that you are here. Several years ago, we were happy to, together with you, develop an unconscious bias trainings for the recruiters. And I think you were a front runner on this topic with Audi. Yeah, it is definitely a very important topic.
Thank you. I know some of our member companies are really focusing on this area in their talent acquisition teams as well. Thank you. Okay, I think we have to close the questions and move on.
Would you like to add something?
Just one word. I mean, one of the easiest things to do is to have more than one person making the decision, right? Very, very easy and quick. Not 100% fixed, but better than only one person.
Great. And we're also going to hear a bit more about hiring as well and recruitment from Biden in one of the best practices that's coming in the second part. Okay, are we then through? Last burning question? No? Okay, you have plenty of opportunity to also ask your questions, bring them in the next section. Plus, let me do a little promotional spot for our written report. So we have a lot in writing, also with many, many recommendations and explanations in the print version of the report. So you find your answers in there as well, hopefully. Okay, so we are on time still. Wonderful. The next session is diving into D&I in practice. So the concept is that from each company, we have two people speaking. So one person brings in the company perspective and explains the practice that the other person who comes in with the employee perspective then talks about from the personal experience side. So these tandems are what you can look forward to right now. So let's welcome the first tandem from EY. And I would like to introduce them. Exactly. Thank you. So delighted, Robin. I don't see you yet live, but I see you here in the picture. She is the Chief Risk Officer from at EY in Switzerland. Her day job then is in finance and accounting. Her passion, though, lies in people. So she's also on the board, or actually leads the diversity and inclusion initiative in Switzerland. She is here with Mark Hawkins, and Mark is, how can I put it, a representative of the white male leader, right? And it will be really exciting to hear his perspective on the topic, and that's really a steep one, challenging leadership norms. Because if we want to fix the system, we have to challenge the current norms. The current norms are very, very male, and we saw the outcome. So how do they challenge these norms? Mark will share from the perspective of an employee. And let me also add that Mark is a father of 6 children. 4 of them, great majority, is female. And he has a granddaughter, and that tells us he has a vested interest in the topic. He shares a passion with Robin, and that is diversity and inclusion. He sits on the council at EY, and I think he will share a little bit about this as well. So now we are super curious to hear all about you challenging leadership norms at EY. Hello, and I hand over to Robin. The floor is yours.
So thanks so much, and hello to everyone out there. I wish I could be in the same room to feel the energy, and I'm still trying to get over wiping the tears off my face from the video. So I think you guys really, congratulations, because that was a very moving video. Let me start, and I don't know if you can see slides at all, if those are going up, but let me just start, and I'll give a quick overview of what we're doing to sort of challenge this leadership norms and redefine what career is, looking like for us at EY. I'll start with the nice picture there. EY, we like to ask questions because we think the better the question, the better the answer, and then the better that the world works. So that's just a kind of intro for you. And maybe if we can just go to the next slide. So at EY, we're basically taking a systematic and holistic approach to and a focus on, and this is related to our next generation leadership. And we're doing this by engaging and encouraging our current leadership to self-reflect, to self-realize, and to lead inclusively. And we believe that this will actually drive the desired mindset shift that is needed to result in an equal and a balanced playing field for our future leaders. So how are we doing this? We have these three enablers. The first one is around basically powering up, and we use this term and we have a program called Power Up, our female talents, while we're at the same time inviting the men to the table. And this is through a revised development approach. And the approach focuses on personal purpose, it focuses on values, and it focuses on strengths. And the result of this approach is confidence building, empowerment, career clarity, and hopefully increased retention, especially in this challenging middle layer of management. The second enabler is around bringing our current leadership to the conversation through their participation in our mentorship program. And the mentorship program is for both female and male mentees. And what this will do is this is creating a shared responsibility for what we call the exceptional career experience of our future leaders. And the learnings and the benefits are actually for both the mentors and the mentees. And this also provides our current leadership with the opportunity to get to know our young talents and the potential future leaders of the organization. So we're building trust, we're increasing the understanding and the needs and the aspirations of these mentees, and ultimately increasing, hopefully, the level of empathy, the desire to support, to sponsor, to promote of our current leadership. And then finally, I call it the art of the possible. And this is engaging everyone in creating the culture that values diversity. And we do this through a role modeling campaign, which is a series of videos that highlight inspiring career storytelling. And these are by both male and females. And I like to say the result of this is sort of the seeing is believing. We're raising awareness and we're actually creating aspirations. So how are we doing so far? So far, we've seen a strong increase to our People Pulse survey, which we do frequently throughout the year, related to D&I topics. And for me, this is an indication that we are listening to the voice of our talent and that we're moving in the right direction with our overall D&I strategy. And our hope with this approach is that we will see a next generation of leaders who look different and are more gender balanced and diverse than what we're seeing today. So over to you, Alexandra.
Thank you so much, Robin. I was just trying to switch on my microphone. Wonderful. That was, I mean, thanks for sharing this deep insights, and I'm sure there will be questions coming in a moment. Let me just ask you one. We know how important accountability is. So you talked about this program with the pillars, and how do you actually make sure, or how do you hold your leadership who has a concrete role in this? How do you hold them accountable? Can you maybe share one or two sentences on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually an interesting question. And, you know, when we started doing these things, actually, most of our leadership are very willing to participate. They want to be involved in the programs. They want to be mentors. They see the benefit of it. It's all around, it's, you know, we're all learning still. And I think it's around it's the level of knowledge that the people have, it's all a little bit different. But I think I would say that the leadership is quite open-minded to this. They're participating in the development program, they're participating in the mentorship program, and they're also participating in the storytelling side of it. So we've seen a real open approach from the leadership so far in this respect.
This is great to hear. And I know you brought someone who actually represents exactly this leadership group. And this is Mark. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
Would you like to? Yeah, hi. So when we talked in the brief, you said, like, I represent this non-diverse white male, right? So how is it for you to be part of this huge change? You called it a movement. It's not an initiative. It's actually really a movement to a new kind of robust leadership. How does it feel to be part of this? And what exactly does it mean for you? What do you do? What does it change? What has it changed in your daily life?
Yeah, so I think I've always been involved in promoting gender diversity. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. You know, back in the 1990s, I was involved in a lot of recruitment, and I certainly wasn't recruiting mini-me's, heaven forbid there were more of me. And I was actually recruiting probably 50-50 on the gender side, which wasn't the case everywhere in Switzerland. And we pushed that in the Swiss Romand area, and it wasn't necessarily the case before. And I think we started pushing that. Why? Because we were finding some very competent female candidates who were even better than the male candidates, and we started pushing that on our hiring. And the more that they grew up within the organization, the more you saw, yes, these people can perform. So for me, it started back in the 90s, and throughout the last 30 years I've been with Ernst & Young Switzerland, I've really seen a fantastic evolution in the way our organization works. And it was sort of soft and gently initially, and now we've got a lot more structure around it, as Robin has shown. And I really believe in that. As you say, I've got a vested interest, having 4 daughters and 1 granddaughter as well. So in the daily life, there's numerous examples I can give you, but I don't want to make my response too long at the moment. But I think it's not just changing my daily life, but it's gradually changing the daily life of all of our partners and leaders as well.
Thank you very much, Mark. I would, because I'm conscious of time, right? So I would like just to motivate you to bring in your questions. Please give me a sign when you have a question ready. And please, Faye, do give me a sign when you have a question ready. In the meantime, Mark, perhaps one more question. Along this journey you just described us so beautifully, were there any self-realizations that you had? And if yes, how have they impacted the way you lead on this inclusion journey? Any kind of self-realization? How have they impacted the way you lead your team, for instance, very concretely, very specifically? So
I think you know, it hasn't been a big step change where I suddenly saw the light. It's really been lots of little incremental self-realizations, if you like. And it was, you know, the first time I asked a lady to present at my leadership team, the first time I asked a lady to share a success story, the first time I took a lady on a proposal to win a new client. And each time you do these things, shall I say, try these things, because they weren't necessarily the norm, and they work, that's a realization for me that we need to do more of that. But it's also an example and a role model for others. So the concrete examples, I'm involving ladies much more in my leadership teams, you know, presenting, sharing success stories, or facilitating interviews on the proposals for new clients. We always try to get a 50-50 team. It depends on the industry sector. Maybe oil and gas is less interesting than consumer products, but we're seeing the market pressure. It's not just that it's better for our team, but we're seeing the market pressure from clients who are saying, you know, we want to see some gender diversity. And if you start now building up to the different management levels, you're starting a bit late. Fortunately, we've got a very good basis for that. And certainly, I think the evolution I've seen is really growing exponentially in our behaviour and the opportunities for women in the last few years.
Thank you. That sounds awesome. So I got a sign that we have a question from the online audience. So Faye, please share it with us.
I have one for Robin and I have one for Mark. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, you're good. So one for Robin from a lady called Valeria. I hear that a lot of women are discouraged to become or be viewed as quota women. True, but at the same time, we need to have more women in management positions to start with. Perhaps quotas aren't bad after all. What's your view on that, Robin?
That's a tough question. And I mean, it's obviously one I've thought about over the years as those topics are coming up. And I share that I don't want to be a quota woman. But I think there is probably a place for this, and there's a way to do it to sort of, you know, accelerate a bit the pipeline. And I have to say that's actually probably fits nice into what we're doing. You heard me, I talked about our next generation leadership, because I think it's the current generation leadership is very difficult to completely overturn now, and because you can do this by saying quotas and you can plug people into those positions, but the question is that the right thing to do right now? I always think everyone should be on an equal playing field. The best person for the job should get the job. We shouldn't, you know, belittle, you know, the progress and the women to just give them these token positions to just fill gaps because we need to fill a quota. But there probably is time and place and situations where they can be very useful.
Thank you, Robin. Many companies, of course, do have a quota for women in top management. We know that. Thank you. I have one for Mark. Mark, you are on the Diversity and Inclusion Council. And so if you were to come up against a challenge with some of your colleagues about how to hire, why they should be hiring women. This is from Yutung Chen in the audience. What would you say to them if they were resistant to hiring women, or even talking about firing women due to the pressures of COVID?
Right, I think to Robin's point she just made, we go on ability first. We really try and go on ability. So whether it's hiring people or firing people or doing the annual evaluations and setting the bonuses and the promotions, we really try to do things on merit. And then at the end, when we've got our list of people we want to promote, you know, we'll look at that list and we'll challenge it and say, you know, is there unconscious bias? Have we done something inappropriate? Do we need to reconsider the diversity elements? And we, in terms of gender, you know, we'll go through the ladies and think about it. Can we, you know, have we unconscious biasly downgraded them and we need to upgrade them? And I don't think there's any conscious bias. And I think the question is asking about conscious bias. And I think we may have had that in our organization 20 years ago, but I certainly haven't seen it in the last 20 years. And I think we have mechanisms to try and manage the unconscious bias that we don't always see if we're trying to hire Minimes. And I think we're doing a very good job on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Holding yourselves accountable by checking your unconscious biases, it sounds like.
Sounds like great, yes. Okay, one final one, we have time for one more. So, and again, it goes to Mark. What has changed in how you are evaluated? I mean, you know, you're challenging these leadership norms, and at some point, leaders and employees get appraisals, if we get evaluated. Has something changed in that process since you are on this journey as EY?
Yeah, we've had sort of informal KPIs, targets, which are measured, but not really, no real impact in terms of carrot and stick. But that's changed in the last year. Every partner, including all those in leadership positions, has 10 KPIs, and you can choose some of them, but one you can't choose, you have to have is around diversity and inclusiveness. So it'll be one that is measured, and it's difficult to come up with excuses if your whole team and everybody that you're promoting and pushing and putting onto proposals and client work are all the same gender as you, or whichever gender that may be. So I think that's the big change now, which actually I'm very happy about for two reasons. One, it's going to help gender diversity even more, and secondly, I think I'll rate very highly in that particular KPI. So I'm very pleased with that one.
Okay, thank you very much. Great, super score high there. I believe you. So both of you, thank you so much. This gives us hope that we will see a different face of leadership at EY in about 5 years from now. So be careful, we'll all be looking very carefully over there. So thank you very much. I have to move on to the next. For time reasons, please stay with us. And to the audience and online as well, there is a case, a written case in our published report that EY has in there on how to challenge leadership norms. So please go and read a little more if you want to know more about that. Okay, so our next topic is how to bring more women into profit and loss roles. We know these are the power positions, and women tend to land in the expert roles. How to change this and what to do. Okay, so I would first like to introduce Karina De Parade. She has a 17-year-old career at IKEA, and she is currently the head of people and culture for IKEA Switzerland. What is particularly interesting about her being in that power position is that she is in a job share at 70%. So she's debunking the myth that such senior positions, power roles, are only possible at 100. Very nice. So we're curious to hear a bit more about that from Karina. Then Karina brought with her, and let me see, Marie Emanuelson. She has also been 17 years with IKEA, and she has quite a stunning career. She started out as an assistant to the CEO, and today she is the market or store manager in St.Gallen, and she has P&L for about 100 million Swiss francs, if I read correctly. So that's the turnover that her store generates here in St.Gallen. So make sure you go and say hello afterwards. She is also in the advanced mentoring program as a role model, and I'm very happy to welcome you both now and hand over to Karina, because we're all tuned in to how you are doing this, how you're challenging the status quo and move more women into profit and role positions. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, and thanks for having us today. I don't know if you can already see the slides, but I will just start off. So we are glad to share some of the best practices we at IKEA Switzerland are having to reach a gender equal share, also in P&L roles, and not exclusively there, but across the company. And I would like to start with some numbers. If you can go to the next slide. This is our current manager chair at IKEA Switzerland. So we have a 48% female and 52 male managers. And this number actually includes around 460 leaders in different management positions, from team leaders over department heads and top management. And if I would zoom in on top management, which are the so-called P&L roles, where we have 22 colleagues, we have currently a share of 55% women and 45% men. So as you can see, we have overall achieved quite a balanced share, but still, if we dig deeper, we also see gaps to close on specific levels. For example, as we have seen also previously on levels like department head positions, but also in specific functions, such as logistics, for example, where it's more difficult to attract female competence. One important game changer for us, and that you can see on the next slide, and that is as part of our equality plan that we have launched end of 2019, we have seen two important change drivers. Firstly, it is expected that every manager takes accountability for closing the gender gap and shaping an inclusive culture. And this really requires that every man believes in the benefits of having a balanced gender share in the team, but also understands why we are doing that. And managers are responsible for the recruitment of their team and the talent management, so also to really look into the succession plans, and they are key for success. Secondly, we have set clear and measurable goals of 50-50 for gender balance in all levels and functions. This is what we strive for. And this is also one of the monthly KPIs we are following up upon, and in order to measure the progress we can see. But clarifying the goals and accountability, they are two important starting points, I would say. But what is it then we are concretely doing to secure a balanced share of women in P&L roles as well? And how do we also spot and support female talents early on to secure a strong succession pipeline? On the next slide, you will see that there is not one single activity, but it's a couple of ingredients we believe in to make it happen. And I will just dig deep on some of them. The first one is obviously recruiting for diversity. So I think every vacancy is an opportunity. And we recruit based on our company values, that's the starting point, but also obviously for competence and development of a person, as well as diversity. So it's really important to keep that aspect on the radar from the beginning. So what we do is that at the beginning of each recruitment process, and I believe that's especially important for leadership positions, the recruiter holds a strategy meeting with the hiring manager where they are actually discussing about the diversity in the team. And this is part of their standard agenda. Then what we also do is we doing talent reviews to secure a 50-50 split. We know that we have quite a high share of growth from within IKEA for manager and key positions. So it's truly important for us to spot talents early on. What we are concretely doing, we are meeting with all the units a couple of times per year, 3 times actually, to discuss the local succession bench and also the performance and the potentials of the leaders in the respective unit. We also do a talent review on country level, where we are focusing on the key positions in our country. And one of the key purposes of these meetings is to secure, also when we look into the succession pipeline, a 50-50 gender split on leader level, and also to proactively really work towards more diversity in a succession bench, because we know that people will grow into the next positions from where they are. And a concrete example that currently we have is that in the succession pipeline for the market managers, the position that Marie is holding, we have currently also deputies. There we have 2 female and 2 male deputies that are trained on the job to become a market manager in the future. Then we do also offer trainings around unconscious bias to different targets group. And we also aim for diverse participation in all the development programs we are having. So we have that really consciously, and it's part of our planning. And what we have launched earlier this year is a common approach for talent sponsoring. A talent sponsor that is a member of our extended management team is actively supporting the development of a high potential with methods of coaching and mentoring over the period of 1 year. And also there, we really have secured that the pool of the sponsors is half male and half female, but also in the high potential pool, we have 34 female ladies and 25 men. So also there, we really need to ensure that it's everywhere more or less equal. So we have really bring up the talents and they have an equal chance to grow in the company. So these were just 2 concrete examples and a couple of other points of what we do to create this 50-50 share of women and men in P&L roles in our organization. And what I would like to end with before handing over to Marie is on the next slide, that achieving gender balance is not a one-time activity or a goal we can look at and reach once. I truly believe in that. Closing the gender gap is a journey, and it requires that we are being very conscious and also put conscious effort and ongoing efforts and adjustments in what we are doing. I think we are all feeling proud that we are on the way in this journey and that we have already a couple of great role models in our company that walk the talk and that also inspire other women to follow. And I'm therefore especially glad that Marie is here with me today and will share a bit more about her personal experience with you. So over to you, Marie.
Thank you very much, Karina. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you very, very well. So let's just continue with you then. This is a nice hand. Great.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so if I think on my personal experience and what would be the key success factors for bringing women into P&L roles. First of all, for me, it has been all the role models around me. I have had the pleasure to work in IKEA and seen many strong women, and they have showed me that women can do the job just as well as any man, and how they have supported and believed in me and also pushed me sometimes when I've not been sure about if I'm good enough. But also all my male managers over the years have supported me and never ever made me feel any different or less important because I'm a woman.
Marie, please, when I interrupt, we have a bit of a, can you hear her well? We have a bit of a sound problem. Maybe it's to do with your microphone, or it could be.
That could well be. Let me do a quick.
You can maybe try this out. And in the meantime, I have a question for Karina, because you mentioned, well, one thing, this gender equal succession planning, already a great practice. We want to know more about this, but probably not time here. And then P&L roles. Are you actually tracking the number of women for P&L roles? Do you keep a tab on this? Are you actively tracking that and making sure that you have enough women succeeding into P&L roles? Yes, did I get it right?
Yes, so we are really having this, as I mentioned, these talent reviews, and we have that on different levels, organizational levels, you could say, and one of them is key positions in the country that includes top management and also the market managers, and they're part of the diversity aspects we look into. So this is only one, the gender, right? But there we also really look into where we are today. And if it's not balanced yet, we are very conscious about getting there, I would say.
Okay. Just a quick follow-up. Do you encounter any difficulties to encourage women to get into P&L roles? Is this something that's totally easy at IKEA, or do you feel like, oh, now we really have to motivate them and work with them and support them?
I think it's really anchored in our culture that people feel quite, comfortable to grow in the company. And as Marie started sharing, and I know she will come back to that, there are already quite some role models we have, right? So there are a lot of female leaders as well to look up to. And then obviously we also try to support, but again, we support male and female with whatever they need in order to succeed in the role. Then we have quite some examples. For example, we have a female logistics manager, which is maybe not the area where you would expect a lady, right? And that also helps there to really emphasize the focus on this is also an area for women. So she is also having this focus in mind, I would say. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. And that bridges over again to our next role model. Actually, the role model has always been here, Marie. Let's try again with the new microphone.
Okay, is this working better? Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, good. Yeah, I heard the echo myself before. I think it's the room. Anyway, yeah, what I was trying to say was, first of all, what Karina just meant is all those role models around me. I've seen many strong women in IKEA who showed that women can do a job just as good as any man. And also how they have supported us and believed in me and pushed me sometimes when I've not been sure if I'm good enough. But also the male managers over the years, they have supported me and never ever made me feel any different or less important. Secondly, it's about the childcare system combined with stereotypes in society. I mean, when you have kids, that's when reality hits you. The childcare system in this country is not made for both parents working. And in addition to that, you get the feeling that you are an outsider or that you're doing something wrong. So everything is quite complicated. It's old fashioned and you sometimes feel like giving up. Luckily, I have the best role model in my own mother. She worked full time when I was a kid and had very similar experiences in Sweden at that time as I do here in Switzerland today. Also, my father, who was one of the few men vacuum cleaning, taking his part at home, had to hear many comments about it, but they were both equally there for me. And I'm so grateful for that and the way they brought me up. That made me to the person I am today. But it clearly shows that Switzerland is maybe one generation behind Sweden when it comes to gender equality. And I think that is quite sad. And it's a waste of all those capable women not taking part of work life. And I also believe that the children are losing out on something. And it's definitely a loss for society and for the Swiss GDP at the end of the day.
Oh gosh, you're making such a case for us. It's one listening to you. It's exactly what the message is of this year's report.
Yeah.
Yes, please keep communicating. You are also communicators. Please go out and share these insights. So exactly, that's a waste of talent. I just could check in with you, Faye, if we have first questions. And think about questions. I see hands going up because I could feel there's so much engagement now in the room.
So thank you very much. You are an outstanding company, and this shows that there is no excuse no longer anymore because you're succeeding in Switzerland. And all the other companies, how can they copy you, or what was the reason you achieved this so early?
Have you received the question? Yeah.
Yes.
What was the reason? Like exactly the success recipe, why you've already achieved what we're all struggling. Is there?
I mean, maybe I guess Marie, we would say the same, but we had that in our chat before as well. We really believe it's the company culture. You know, that is, I mean, it may have to do with the Swedish background, where it's a bit more in the forefront already. Also, when it comes to, for example, parental policies, but also our culture and values, company values, they are very strong, and everything around equality, diversity, and inclusion is just super strongly anchored in whatever we want to do. I mean, our vision is to create a better place for a better everyday place for the many people, and that includes coworkers, right? So yeah, maybe Marie, you want to add? I don't know.
Yeah, I had a few more things. If I have 2 more minutes, is that okay?
Of course. I just
okay. Thank you.
People want to talk to you and with you. Please go ahead.
Because I think another key success factor is also this about having a partner actually who is willing to take that 50% responsibility for children and for the home. My partner, he is Swiss, but he realized early in our relationship that who I am or how I am, and that equality is something I take for granted. And that's maybe also part into this. It just comes natural, at least for me. But if you have, if you have that partner, then you have the chance also to grow and to take on responsibility. And it sounds maybe rational, but that is one of the key success factors, I believe. And also coming back to what Karina said before, having the goal of 50-50, you need to have a goal. When I recruit, for example, my management team, when I started 1.5 years ago, we were 75% men, now we're 50-50. And if you have a clear goal, when you start the recruitment, the chance is much bigger that you get what you're looking for. And finally, maybe just what I try to do to improve the gender situation in Switzerland is to be a good example and to mentor. I mentor several women and men. I take the chance to talk about it on any occasion I can, like today. And I encourage women to believe in themselves and to encourage also men to support their partners, or if they are managers, support their female co-workers. And just one small example, in my store, I have a co-worker who is a father and he's a coach of the local football team for kids. And he asked me, Marie, can you sponsor our t-shirts? And I said, how many girls do you have in your team? And he said 0. And I said, when you have 3 girls in your team, you get your t-shirts. So I think we need to push gender equality on all levels, and we need to be a good example for our kids. That's yeah.
That's wonderful. This is wonderful. And so Marie has 240 employees, I read. So you can influence every single one of them, and not just the women, also the men.
Exactly.
You know, this is important. If you had one piece of advice, just one, to give Swiss women, you know, as a role model, what would this one piece of advice be, Marie?
Discuss with your partner about this before you get the kids.
And I know how serious you are about this.
I am serious.
the most important thing for every woman. Okay, share it with your daughters as well, by the way. And from you, Karina, more maybe the company perspective again, one single piece of advice to other Swiss companies who would like to, you know, reach 50-50 at some point.
Believe in people, and that's male and female. Mm-hmm. And trust that everyone, you know, wants to progress and do their best, and then just support them in their journey. Mm. So, and that covers a lot, I know that, but it's believing in people.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So people and culture and strong.
I think we can't hear you anymore. Oh, maybe just us.
Okay. Sorry, I wanted to thank you both again for this wonderful contribution. We heard a lot. People and culture matter extremely. Right? So it's the soft, sometimes the soft side that has the most impact. So, for time reasons, I need to push on, but thank you again, both of you. Please stay with us. It was wonderful having you. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Really cool. So then we move on to Biogen. So the third key topic is hiring and interviewing for inclusive personalities. So we saw how many men we still employ in the new hire section. If they were all totally inclusive, it's less of a problem than if they're all non-inclusive. So we have Katharina and Bernd sharing the practice that they have at Biogen. So Katharina Gasser is the managing director of Biogen Switzerland. She had a medical career before, then went into business, and now is in one of the P&L roles of the country. I'm sure she has a lot of responsibility there. She's also on the board of several companies, and she was a board member of Advance. And I know what a strong ally you are, Katharina. So it's an honor to have you with us. And you brought Bernd Breitschopf with you. He is your global HR business partner of Biogen Biosimilar Business Unit. I guess that's really huge. He has a long background in HR and international companies, and he has a great passion for differences in people. He believes that it doesn't only make life more interesting and fun, it also makes an environment more productive and successful. So we're really curious to hear from you two about hiring inclusively and what rigor you apply, because I think it's all about rigor in your organization. So with this, let me give the floor to Katharina and Bernd. I hope they can hear us. Are you with us?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, all good on our side. We would like to see you as well.
Okay, so it is a pleasure to be here today and be a speaker after those 4 speakers before. And it's also nice to see that some best practices shown by EY and IKEA also apply at Biogen. And I would like to give you a short overview on inclusive hiring and inclusive interviewing, which we live here at Biogen. If we go to the first slide, we can see that at the next slide, please. We can see that inclusive hiring, which is at the core, to get good teams, to get diverse people into the teams, and to also attract talent. It doesn't depend if they're male, female, with a different background, with a different mindset, also with different capabilities, different ethnicities, different backgrounds that are not maybe the typical ones that we look for. When we want to attract them, we also need to assure that we have a good base and that we have also trainings that are rolled out all the time again. And we've started this year a new training, which sounds a bit easy. Everyone should know how to interview or to hire, but actually we believe that this is worth to put that at the priority list of our managers, that they hear it over and over again, and that they have a good base from the very beginning. So they have this training that is mandatory for all managers, and they have it repeatedly so they don't forget. But also the exchange with people managers, with their managers or superior is also very important. And also always when we have to attract talent in a new position, look at the situation what it is, what is needed, and what talent could fit into this new role. Then it's a worldwide goal. All of our managers worldwide have to follow the same training by the end of this year. And we think that is very worthy because it's an hour that is well spent, but also reflecting afterwards and always taking it at the forefront when we get into new situations. And then another thing is the role modeling piece, learning by doing, that you repeatedly, go through this interview guide again, that you reflect on that, and that once in a while that you also pair up with someone else to interview, to learn best practice from another person. When we go to the next slide, we come now to the interview process. Obviously, this also seems so simple, but it's actually not. And we emphasize that a thorough preparation, that we have a job description ready, that is inclusive, that has not any unconscious bias, that does not shy away potential candidates, but makes people want to work at Biogen. Then we have our elements, and we've heard before how culture is important. And if you can see at the back there, we have the 6 elements that are important for us, which are at the core of doing business. We include them in the interview, and each interviewee gets an element assigned, and then the interview is based on that respective element. We also like the STAR method because it's actually very tangible and it's not up in the air, fluffy somehow, but it's practical, and it also gives you a good flavor because it's actually examples from real life. Once the interview process is over, we have a standardized feedback process where everyone gives the input and all the interview feedback is collected and then reviewed. And then in the end, the decision is taken. And by this standardization, which sounds maybe a bit boring, but we then, can assure that we have the same process over and over. We can also improve quality over time, and that we do not shy away potential candidates because we do it differently once in a while. And now I would like to hand over to Bernd, who is going to give us some numbers and also going to speak about real life at Biogen. Thank you, Bernd.
So also from my side, hello everybody. Many thanks, Katharina. So we have seen about the recruitment process per se at Biogen, and I think here it's important to identify that the recruitment process in general has 3 challenges per se during the whole process itself. The first process is of course the sourcing challenge. This means where do I identify, where can I find those diverse candidates? Do I have to look into a different recruitment pool, and or are there any potential barriers? We have heard about this. Let's also rethink the job description per se about educational background or prior work experience, etc. The second challenge is then, of course, the selection challenge. Here we have heard already about our process of Biogen from Katharina. And the target and aim is, of course, how can we effectively assess diverse candidates with regards to unconscious bias, etc. And the last one, which is clearly, how can we ensure that we get those diverse talents into our organization? This means, how can we bring them and ensure that we are the right company for those diverse talents? And this is not only a recruitment talent team topic or HR topic. This is clearly a task for the whole organization. Because the major question is, and this is what I've addressed also to the business, is diversity and inclusion sometimes like a complete check the box based on political correctness, or is it really better to do so, the right thing to do? And we have seen throughout the presentations, the 2 hours today, that an inclusive team not only brings more fresh new ideas, as well as highlights or bring higher financial results, but also increase the team spirit with regards to problem solving, and also with regards to open leadership. And this is what we have seen at Biogen, because with this open leadership, we have more accountability, empowerment, as well as speak my mind. And to give you some figures here, it's clearly indicating that Speak My Mind has increased from 2019 to 2021 by 7%. This means our employees are not afraid of any negative consequences in case they speak up. Even we have increased last year compared to last year, keep in mind when we all were during the pandemic working from home. And aligning also with the great example of IKEA, here Biogen, we have a female representation of around 52.9%. And with regards to female representation, female colleagues within Biogen from director and above, we have even increased from last year, 45% to 47%. So also this ensures or helps us to get through this majority gap of 30% to really influence the organization. And I would like to close to say, I think it's not that tricky. There are two major questions or decisions that we are taking every day. Every company is doing this. And those decisions is, whom do we hire and whom do we develop and promote? There are a lot of programs out there for women leadership program, mentoring, coaching, they're all good. But I think those two decisions, if this is with the business and within HR embedded, they make really the most powerful change signals within the organization. And with this, back to you, Alexandra.
Thank you, Bernd. Thank you, Katharina. And congratulations on the great numbers that you shared and on the initiatives and on the passion with which you drive this internally. So this was really interesting. I heard something that kind of my ear went buzzing, open leadership, and the figures there, and the initiative's called Speak My Mind. That sounds interesting. It's like an environment that seems psychologically quite safe, seems to spark a lot of engagement and a lot of innovation, which is probably at the core of your business. We'd love to hear more about this. I don't know how much time we have for that, but that sounds super interesting. I didn't quite get the figure. Can you please repeat those this tracking, these numbers that you brought in there?
So for sure, Alexandra. So the Speak My Mind, we have increased over the last 3 years from 70% up to 75%. So this means 75% of our overall population feels safe to speak up and also to propose new opportunities, innovation. You mentioned it, it's really important for Biogen. So this is where we are able to really increase even during the pandemic when everyone was working from home. So we were embedding this in our culture.
I'm asking the audience to think about and bring in your questions. I think we have some from the online audience, but before we're going there, you said there are two most important questions every company has to decide every day. Who do we hire and who do we develop and promote? And then you talked about those skills that make a company or a person inclusive behavior. So can you tell us, or maybe describe how you changed your hiring process now that you want to hire people that show up with this inclusive behavior? How do you, very concretely, as a practice, can you maybe give us 3 key things that we would have to do if I wanted to start hiring for inclusive behavior? What do I change in my way of going about this?
So from the HR side, and then Katharina, would be great to hear from your side as well. What we have done is we adjusted our JDs so that also the diverse talents are applying with regards to years of experience, with regards to the background. And also what we have done, and you have seen, we have various programs which we are repeatedly working with the line managers on diversity and inclusion, unconscious bias. There are various trainings throughout the year to embed this. And also what we have done at the beginning, it has been mentioned by Gudrun, we have KPIs which are measured not only within HR, but those are on the Biogen global KPIs, and here the full company is being measured. Katharina.
Thank you, Bernd. And one other thing which is really important, when you have the interviews with the candidates, you also have those questions about diversity to understand what is the view of the candidate bringing in and adding. And maybe there's something new that you haven't thought about that also let that happen. And obviously, we spoke a lot about diversity, and we haven't spoken that much about gender equality in Biogen, because at Biogen, it's truly That's how it is, you know. And I think by also embedding that into the daily activities, into the meetings, and also challenging the leadership teams or the teams on those questions on when they have candidates, bring them in. And also, Bernd said it before, retain talent and bring that up, that diverse mindset. That is something that we want to have in our DNA, because we are pioneers in neuroscience. We need the innovative spirit. We need the digital thinking. We need the new generation. We need this blend. And I think by having that and not being the stereotypes and also living it, and also giving opportunities to people that might not seem the perfect candidate at first sight because they don't tick all the boxes, but often those are the much more interesting candidates on the long run.
Wow, amazing. Okay, so one last thing. So if a person that you hired and you thought, wow, is very inclusive and great, fits perfectly, and then in the evaluation, which if I heard correctly, your evaluation criteria are pretty transparent. I see a nod, right? So the evaluation criteria are transparent. One of them is inclusive behavior. So what do you do if you have a heavy hitter, great sales person who brings in a lot of, a lot of money, but behaves totally non-inclusive? What is happening at Biogen in a case like this?
That's a great question. And, you know, when you have the P&L responsibility and you have to deliver at the end of the year a budget, it seems appealing to just hit the numbers and not care about the rest. But that is not how we look at things. So we value 50% the performance and 50% the values and behavior when we have the 3 monthly reviews of the performance and the behavior, and also the end year performance, which also then has, you know, a significance for the payout. And then we look at that. And if people do not behave like it fits our elements and they are not inclusive, they get, you know, at the first discussion we put things on the table and we ask them to change that. If that happens again 3 months later, they get a warning, and then they can get on a performance improvement plan, and they might have to leave the company, because we do not accept that in the long run, because that's not how we see success as a company, and also towards our teams and people.
Impressive. And I heard a bravo, some like many murmurs in the row. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate you sharing so openly your practice. And I think we can all take away many things from all 3 best practices. Now, as you can see on the clock, it's 2 minutes to 12. So I'm forced to slowly close down. A big, big thank you once again to you, Katharina, Bernd, Marie, Karina, and oh my goodness, exactly, and Mark and Robin. So I'm great that you were here with us. Wonderful. Thank you so much for that firework. And I will hand over now to Gudrun for the closing.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. Yeah, I think it was really inspiring to have these 3 best practices sharing their ways how they do it, and also the success stories. And this gives us all the hope that it works. And that's the most important thing. That's not only a dream, not only a vision, it works. If we are consequent enough and we really look out for the right talents to hire and to develop. I think